This one is going to be a fairly short one. I try to keep it short, fairly brief. I want to focus on pros and cons of a melee build. I received a comment on my last Avengers run, or not in my last Avengers run, but my Elite Volt run, about like the viability of melee builds, and I definitely wanted to eventually do a video where I was addressing any issues you'll run into with this build, because every build has issues, whether it's full range, full heroic, full tank, hybrids, and yeah, all of that. But yes, every build is going to have a weakness. Especially, you'll notice these weaknesses whenever you're in the higher levels as well. I do want to point out, in the higher levels, even if you're 150, ads can go up to 163. So 13 power levels ahead of you, they're going to have a great deal of moves in their arsenal that can one-shot you. So if you're not perfect at the dodging, and don't feel too bad, it's likely that you can get one-shotted either way. Because that's the point. It's going to be harder. They want you to try to get as good as you can at the dodging, or using your abilities to get yourself out of tight spots. So that is going to happen. I don't think there is a build in the game that's going to keep you from going down. You have to really learn to avoid those hits or combat enemies in an aggressive way where you can get around those one shots, because it is going to happen. And especially when you're running solo missions, because we've all got a chance to see the AI. The AI is decent when it comes to fighting enemies. However, when it comes to objective-based stuff, it's not the greatest. So you kind of have to shine. Anybody who's like played higher levels can really see this, or just anything outside of the campaign. But anyway, moving on to the actual pros and cons. So first I want to start with the cons, because I think I've already discussed pros in previous videos, but I will go back. So with cons, ranged people. Ranged people are the biggest pain in the ass when it comes to being a full melee build. Any enemies that can do a great deal of damage in one move, like those rocket guys, whether it steals your super energy, or if it's just going to be a one-shot, graviton or not, those enemies are by far your worst, and they should be on your hit list as soon as you see them spawn. The faster you take out these guys with the rocket launchers, or any sort of projectile that homes in on you, the better off your chances are surviving that fight without dying. Because if you're trying to lock down an adaptoid in a one-on-one, or a giant exo, and there's somebody in the back popping off rocket shots, you're going to waste all your downs and end up wiping. And I'm guilty of that. I'll try to see if I can burst somebody out real quick and then get to the guy with the rocket, and then I end up getting popped a few times, or just one time, and then I'm dead. So definitely go after those rocket guys as fast as possible, because ranged people, I mean, this is they're very weak when we get up close to them, but far away they'll do some insane damage to you. Then there is enemies like the shielded robots and the adept adaptoids. They have this move where they put this crosshair on you, and as the crosshair goes from yellow to red, they'll eventually hit you with a devastating attack. The shielded robot is a one-shot, and I believe the adept adaptoid is two, unless you have some graviton defense. I recently got a triple might with some graviton resistance, and I believe one of my, oh, here we go, I got it in my defense gear as well to help with that. But even with this, it still does an absurd amount of damage. Those enemies you want to check very fast too. If you have abilities that you can charge up, know that you're invulnerable whenever you're in those abilities, and that's a good way to escape those situations. And then as soon as that ability is done, go all in on that person and try to wipe them out, because the longer you let those enemies stay alive, they are a big wrench in your plans to full melee builds. They can ruin a good combo that you got going on, and then just put you down. So The range guys with the rocket launchers or those drones in the air, take them out as quickly as possible. You see a shielded robot, get on it. Same thing with adept adaptoids. Those are by far my most difficult people for me to deal with, because they just mess up how I'm flowing whenever I'm dealing with the lower level ads that you usually just pummel through and go through pretty quickly. There are elite synthoids that shoot the red lasers. They're pretty annoying as well on the brutal challenge level 4, because a lot of times they'll just hit you one time with that laser and you'll just go down, and you could be stringing a combo together on him and he'll just break out of it and then hit you with it. With those people, if you do find a combo that you can run into that helps you juggle enemies, that's the best way to go with them, or try to follow up on a takedown. But those guys as well need to be addressed very quickly. But in terms of how you should approach fights, it all depends on how you play this game. There definitely is an element to where it depends on how you like to run your stuff, to depend on if it'll work. If you can pull it off and it's working for you, don't stop doing it because somebody else is succeeding with something else. That's one of the main reasons I go full melee, because I mean that's what worked for me in the beta, and that's what's worked after the beta, through the campaign and into these higher levels. I love the insane takedown damage that you get. Anybody who's seen the 29 million plus video and the 55 million plus video on the takedowns, it's absolutely insane. And even when I'm just doing takedowns while I'm embiggened or not embiggened, I chunk the ads with them. So there's definitely a preference with what works for you at some point. This build is also a glass cannon build, which I'm pretty sure anybody who's watched the previous videos knows at this point, because I haven't changed anything except for more gear that gives me more might. I've never been running resilience. I've never been like focusing that or any defense rating. I was trying to hit the best amount of damage I can do with full melee, meaning I'm trying to chunk the ads, kill them in one combo, get insane one shots if I can. That's how I like to run my Miss Marvel. I definitely do think it is the best way to run her. I could definitely see you opting out for some defense so you can be a little bit of a bruiser instead of a glass cannon. That definitely could work. My only issue is eventually when you start to push that brutal area, they're going to get through that resilience because you don't have a lot. And then if you do start to hit like a deficit in damage, say you're not in the 3000s anymore and you're in like the low 2000s or mid 2000s, you're going to feel that the fights are going to be longer. For me, I try to keep the fights as short as possible. I'm a high risk player, but yeah, this is definitely a glass cannon build. I don't have a lot of damage resistance at all, so I just do my best to not get hit. I use my abilities to cheese out of tough spots. So like I said, if a shielded robot is on me and I don't trust myself to dodge it, I'll hold R1. The zap will go through, I'll take no damage. Or I'll L1 as it's going through to heal myself, I'll take no damage. Or I'll embiggen. But there's definitely a playstyle element to this game that you have to explore on your own to determine what's going to work for you with how you proceed to higher levels. What works for some is definitely not going to work for all. One thing I also was saying to the person that commented to me that heroic Kamala just, I mean, I have some heroic rating from my gear, but this wasn't on purpose. I honestly was chasing anything that was going to boost my melee rating to as high as it could possibly go. Heroic could do some crazy single target damage. It might even take out a good bit of ads in front of you. But if you look at the other heroes in this game that are meant to go heroic, for example, Thor. Thor is going to do way better heroic damage than Kamala. His moves, you can see as you're purchasing the upgrades that he's like meant to be put in that direction. Your R1 is like one of his most devastating abilities. Charged up, he's like one-shotting all the average ads in front of him and probably chunking adaptoids and special enemies, elite synthoids, to like half or lower than that. That's pretty insane for that to just be to start off of the fight, and you're invulnerable while you're doing that. Then he has that move where he throws Mjolnir, and then in that area he can drop lightning bolts. There's a video of someone's Thor who had just broke 4K heroic rating, and he's absolutely stomping. But there's pros and cons to that full heroic stuff as well, and that's your cooldown reduction. If you don't have a lot of cooldown reduction from your mastery page or your specialty page, then that's when he hits his damage fall off, because he doesn't have a lot of melee rating, and that would be his next go-to for damage output, or his ranged. So every build has a weakness. People that are ranged, they don't want these up close fights. They want to keep the enemy as far away. When you're single player in Last Avengers, or maybe if you're just running a vault, you're going to notice you get a lot more aggro than you would if you were playing with friends. That's another thing you have to factor in. This is all different when you're playing with people, because the ads distribute their attention pretty decently from what I've seen when you actually have 4 real players. But when it's you tend to catch a lot of the heat first, unless one of your ads either taunts or just gets aggro from the enemies from using an ability or just autoing them enough times for it. But every build is going to have pros and cons. The main pros of the full melee build is constant damage output with Kamala, whereas with the abilities you would have a severe fall off, because one, you only have one offensive ability anyway. Your L1 is only going to heal you. There's no damage buffs for that. And then you have to wait for those to come back. The cooldowns are just, I mean, even with you grabbing those extra heroic orbs, you're not going to see more than somebody who's going for melee. Like, she clears through ads with her heavy attacks. It's insane. I love it, and that's why I haven't switched off to anything else. Her ranged attacks have some pretty good CC, but I think they suit more of a tanky Kamala that's actually trying to control the ads more than take them down in the fastest way possible, or, you know, the most swift way. So yeah, this is, to me, the quickest way that I've found. If somebody has seen another Kamala main out there, or any other Kamala mains watching this video who have a different setup than mine, definitely comment down below. Let me know how you run your Kamala, and, you know, what works for you. I've seen some people throw in some proficiency, and that guy actually has a 20 million damage video up. I checked that out. It was pretty sick. But yeah, if you have anything different that you like to do, let me know how it works for you, because I'm not by any means saying like no other build can work. This is the only build that works. I just feel like this is the highest damage build you can run with her. And I do think it has some viability in the high-end content, because I mean, I've reached 150 with ease. The only reason it took a little longer is because I held on to some blue artifacts that were just raising my melee rating higher and not really raising my power levels. You see, it stops at 135. And I was waiting on a triple might epic, and Maddie Cho had one in there the other day, which was awesome, because if I just can get another one of those, I think that could be like the highest might you can have in the game, because as of lately I haven't been finding too many other gear pieces that can give you any more might than this right here. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about um, the cons I've listed for the melee build, mainly the ranged enemies and enemies who have auto aim abilities that can't miss unless you found a way to dodge or become invulnerable. Let me know what you think about that. Any other pros I missed other than constant damage output, whereas there's not really a fall off until you have to get closer to those ranged enemies? Because I definitely want to learn from you guys as well. This works the best for me, and as I said earlier, if there's something that you do that works better for you, don't switch off from it. Keep doing it. All right, guys.